What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be doing a beginner's guide to Python, and in this video I'm going to be going over Python syntax, the variable types, and basic operators, but you can take this as just a general introduction to programming. And for this video I'm going to be using Python 3, and actually for this whole series I'll be using Python 3. So let's get started with the syntax of Python. So all Python files have a .py extension. Right now I'm using Replit, which is just an online code editor, so I don't necessarily have to make a file. But if you want to see how to do that, you can check out this other video I made and just click that link right there to view it. There's also some rules for Python identifiers. And you may not know what identifiers are, and they're actually names of variables, constants, classes, and functions. You may not even know what those are. So to begin, a variable is essentially a container for data, and I know that you've probably heard that analogy before, but I'm going to use it again because it's actually pretty good. So here we have this variable name. It's an identifier. And here's the value of the variable. So I set my number equal to 4. If we run this, it does nothing. I just have a print statement up there. But we get no errors. Now the thing with identifiers is that they must start with the letter A to Z. They can be lowercase or uppercase, or it can start with an underscore. It can also be followed by letters, underscores, or digits. This means that you can't start your identifiers with a number. So let's try to run this. And you see I get an error because it's invalid syntax. Now if I put this at the end, I get no error. Also, Python doesn't support characters like the @ symbol, so if I put an @ symbol there and I run it, it doesn't work, invalid syntax. And also, Python is a case-sensitive programming language. So I have num equals 4 there in all lowercase, but if I put this in all uppercase equals 5, these two variables are two different things. Now if I printed these, if I printed num, it still is 4. It doesn't change to 5 because these are two different variables. Python also has certain words that cannot be used as identifiers. For example, a word like and. You can't name a variable and because it's used in other functions and stuff like that I'll be going over in the next video. See, we get an error. I'll show the list of reserved words on the screen, and also you can pretty much look this up anywhere. It's very easy to find. Okay, lines and indentation. Now, this is a part of Python that some people love and some people hate. Instead of using brackets or like curly braces like some other programming languages do to signify blocks of code, Python uses indentation. So let me show you what that means. So let's create an if statement and an else statement, and if you don't know what this is, don't worry about it. I'll be going over it in the next video, but just to see the block, we're going to use it. You don't have to understand it. We're going to print hello. Oh, I can't spell. And else, we're going to print goodbye. Here you can see in the if statement we indent this print hello. And also in this else statement we indent the print goodbye. And if we run this, we get hello because it's always going to be true. But if we delete these indentations, we get an error. It says expected indented block, which is exactly the thing we're missing. Though sometimes the compiler can tell you, or the debug area can tell you what's wrong. Sometimes it makes sense. Now there's also things called comments, and these are pretty useful. So let's say I wanted to comment out this print hello viewer. I can just do that pound symbol or hashtag, whatever you want to call it, and it automatically, the compiler does not read over it. And I just get the hello, I don't get the hello viewer. Also, multi-line comments. If I want to comment out this whole if statement, else statement thing, I can put it in these triple quotation marks. I can wrap it around there, and it doesn't run through. Now that we know all that, we can get started with variable types. So I'm just going to delete this. And variable types are types that you can name your variables. An important thing to know is that when creating variables, Python doesn't need you to explicitly state what the variable is, what the type is. So here you can see I just put num equals 4, but in some languages they want you to do int number equals 4. And if I run this, I get an invalid syntax error. So if you want to specifically make something a variable, an integer or a specific type, all you have to do is do int and then the variable name, and this will change this to an integer. So if I run that, we don't get any errors, and that's what we want. And this is useful when you set the number actually equal to the integer value. So this would be useful if you were accepting user input as a string, but it was a number and you wanted to change it to a number, you can do that. Alright, there's also, like I just mentioned, string types. Strings are, oh, that's a reserved word. Strings are just pieces of text surrounded in parentheses. They don't have to be text, actually. They can be numbers, letters, characters, whatever you want. They're strings. And you can also make a string with single quotes. It's exactly the same. And if we run this, we get no errors, so that's great. There's also list and a lot more types out there, but we're not going to go over them today because we'll do that in the next video. So be sure to watch the next video. I mean, there's a lot of valuable stuff in there. Now we can move on to basic operators. Now there's a series of operators. There's arithmetic operators, comparison operators, assignment, etc., logical. But we're only going to touch on 3 today, which is, and we can start with the arithmetic operators. Now some of the arithmetic operators are your basic add, subtract, multiply, divide, and you do that by just literally putting the sign, like 4 plus 5 equals, we'll say number, oh my goodness, we could say number equals 4 plus 5. Alright, and if we print this, we get 9. So you can see that's basic addition, we can do subtraction too, all that stuff. Also, multiplication is the little asterisk symbol, 20. Now, to the power of something is the double asterisk symbol, and this would be the base, and 5 would be the exponent. So I actually don't know what this equals, but there we go, 1024. We don't need to calculate it, it does it for us. And there's also this operator called modulo, which you may have heard of it, but it returns the remainder. So if I did 5 divided by, I don't know, 5 divided by 2, run this, the remainder is 1, because 2 goes into 5 twice with the remainder of 1, and that's the remainder right there. So modulo is pretty great for certain uses, and I've used it countless times. Also, we can get floor division, which is the double slash. If we run this, we get 2. Now what this does, it divides 5 by 2, and then it rounds the number down. So it basically just gets rid of the decimals. So if we just did this with regular division, we get 2.5. But if we do it with floor division, we just take that number off, that decimal off, and get 2. Now we can move on to comparison operators. And there's a few of them. To do this, I'm going to make another variable. If I make another variable, let's call it condition. Now let's say 4 is not equal to 5. This is the not equals operator. You do an exclamation point and a equal sign. Let's see what this returns. It returns true because it's true that 4 doesn't equal 5, so it's going to return true. If we do 5 equals 5, we get false because it actually does equal it. I know, it's a little bit difficult to understand the logic sometimes, but you can do it. Now if we change this to an equals equals, which means obviously equals, we get true. There's also operators like greater than, and since 5 is not greater than 5, it's going to be false, and there's also less than, which will return the same result. Now we can do greater than or equal, and vice versa with the less than or equal. And these are especially useful for things like conditional statements and loops, which we are going to cover in the next video. Now we can move on to assignment operators. And assignment operators are even more useful in loops. I know, we're going to be learning a lot next video. But, okay, so let's say our number equals 4. And what if I wanted to increase this number by 1? I can do number equals number plus 1, right? If I run that, oh, I gotta print it. Now, if I run that, we will get 5. But, you know, this is a lot to write out, and I mean, it's not a lot, but for programmers, it's a lot. And this is so widely done that they've created a bunch of shortcuts for this. So what you can do, which means exactly the same thing as I just wrote, you can do plus equals 1. And if we run this, we still get 5. And this is exactly the same as num equals num plus 1. It's just a little bit more condensed. And you could do this with any arithmetic operator like we just discussed. You can do this with the minus. We run it and we get 3. You can even do this with multiplication. We run it and we obviously get 4. And you can do it with, yeah, pretty much anything. You can do it with the exponent, the modulo, etc. So thank you for watching. Please give this a like if you found this useful. And if you really liked it and want to see more, subscribe.